Hi, I'm Daryl Cagle, and this is our first podcast, our first CagleCast. We're going to talk about editorial cartoons and cartoonists, their art, their issues, and stuff in the news. And I think it's going to be great. We're going to do it fairly often, and I hope that you'll click to subscribe wherever you're looking at this podcast. Today, we're going to talk through the top 10 cartoons of the week. This is the cartoon that is tied for number one, and we run a small business that syndicates editorial cartoons to about 500 newspapers, and we keep very good statistics on what cartoons the editors choose to print. And that's what this is. This is the cartoons that are most reprinted. It may not be the cartoons that you like best or the cartoons that are best, but they're the cartoons that editors wanted to put in their newspapers. This first one is by Dave Wamond, who is just a brilliant cartoonist. He draws 2 comic strips, he does greeting cards and calendars, and he does 4 editorial cartoons with us every week that are always among the most reprinted cartoons. He is just great. And this one is tied for number one. I'm going to read through these because this is also an audio podcast. And if you're not seeing the images, you need to go to my blog at darylcagle.com. You'll be able to see the video podcast and the all of the images that we talk about during the podcast. And soon we'll have CagleCast.com up. But of course, we're just doing our first podcast right now, and we don't have it quite going yet, but it will be going soon, and it will be going frequently. So Dave's cartoon has a family at the kitchen table, and the header reads, "If we ran our household budgets like they run the government finances." And Mom says, "Oh my God, our credit card bill is through the ceiling." And Dad says, "No problem, hon. I'll just raise the ceiling. We'll just print more money." And the son, who's eating his breakfast cereal, says, "The only catch is the printer ink. It's $7 billion, Dad." And I think that's funny. He's got a dog looking through the to the reader. It's a hilarious cartoon. This is the number 2. It was not really a number 2. It's tied for number 1. We just have it in the number 2 spot. It's by Jeff Katurba. Jeff Katurba had a fantastic week last week. He's got 3 cartoons in the top 10, and that's just unbelievable. Jeff drew for many years for the Omaha World Herald, and editors love his stuff. Here he's got Uncle Sam, and the red ink ceiling is crushing down on him. Uncle Sam thinks, as if it's not bad enough, we're up against the debt ceiling, and the politics saw is cutting a hole in the floor for him to fall through. This one is this one and the last cartoon are very indicative of what editors for newspapers want these days. They want cartoons that don't portray a strong left or right point of view, but that are something that are kind of about the news, but nobody's going to disagree with it. What the readers like are cartoons that reinforce their existing point of view. Liberals want liberal cartoons. Conservatives want conservative cartoons, and they don't want to see what they disagree with. So I can kind of see where the editors are coming from and how they have to find that place where nobody disagrees. But, that's not the kind of cartoon that cartoonists really want to draw. We want to bash people over the head with our strong point of view. And so editors are a constant source of frustration for us. This is the kind of stats we keep. We keep very good stats on all of the cartoons, and we know just what the editors are printing, and we track what the most popular cartoons are. Here you can see the tie at the top between the 2 cartoons you just saw, Wamond and Koturba. The next cartoon is by our conservative cartoonist Gary McCoy, who has drawn a cartoon that is not conservative, so it shows up in the top 10. The lady is talking to her presumably husband, who's looking at a laptop showing Facebook 70s memories, and he says, "I find it odd that so many people use the most high-tech social media platform just to look longingly at photos of life before social media." This is another one that newspaper editors are going to like because there's no left and there's no right, and Grandma's going to like it because this is what she thinks about social media, and good cartoon for newspapers. I see why it's number 3. This one is number 4. It's Jeff Katurba's second of 3 in the top 10, which is, again, just so crazy impressive. We do about 120 cartoons a week. We've got 60 cartoonists in our group, and to have one cartoonist claim 3 spots in the top 10, that's just incredible. But you can see why this one did, because it criticizes both President Biden and ex-President Trump equally. They're driving down the road to 2024, and they're stopped by the FBI at a classified document check, and both of them have their boxes of classified documents flying in the air. Trump has more, but Trump is driving a golf cart, and Biden's only got as many classified documents as fit on his bike. Anyway, they're criticized equally. The pox on both your houses kinds of cartoons are something the editors like. This one is by R.J. Matson, cartoonist who draws from Maine. He worked for many years for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Just a brilliant cartoonist. He's drawn for everybody. He's drawn for the New Yorker. He's drawn for Mad Magazine. RJ is just great. This cartoon is kind of interesting because RJ submitted it on the 22nd, and we just had the big shooting in Los Angeles. And then the next day, there was another giant shooting, also in California, and that was he had to draw a correction because he needed another blood spatter. That's pretty rare. Most of our corrections are due to misspellings rather than mass shootings. Anyway, this is a great cartoon. It does fill up the month. Here is Jeff Katurba's third cartoon in the top 10. And you've got mom and son. Son's got classified documents in his hands, poking out of his backpack. Mom says, "And you're certain there's no homework in your backpack?" And son says, "I'm certain, but I did find these classified documents." Again, no left and right. It's about the news, but there's nothing to disagree with. Lots of classified document problems here. We're getting a whole lot of cartoons about how there's lots and lots of classified documents that are poorly stored. So, of course, editors like this. Jeff had a great week. This was by Guy Parsons. And like Dave Wamman, Guy Parsons is from Canada, but we put him on our site as being an American cartoonist because cartoons don't travel well over borders. And editors, if they see that it's American editors, if they see that it's a Canadian cartoonist, they're just, cartoon's going to be invisible to them. So we call them American, and they do a great impression of American cartoonists. You wouldn't know that these guys are not American cartoonists. So this one's got things that editors love. It's got the donkey and the elephant fighting each other rather equally. And it's got a groundhog in it for Groundhog Day. And editors love holidays. They love Groundhog Day. And what are you not going to like about this cartoon? From an editor's perspective. From a cartoonist's perspective, you might argue, not really taking a position on an issue, but we have a lot of cartoons that take positions on issues and they don't get into the top 10. So this one was a successful one for Guy. This one is a cartoon that I drew 9 years ago. And the news doesn't change much. At that time, 9 years ago, they were still arguing in Congress about the debt ceiling, and it was an off the cliff kind of issue like it is right now. This is I've added a Republican elephant and a Democrat donkey to the famous painting Nighthawks by Edward Hopper that shows an old coffee shop in an urban setting, and it's kind of bleak, and the elephant says, "I refuse to pay for the hamburger I ordered and ate." And the Democrat says, "Just put my hamburger on my tab." Things don't really change. This is a kind of a metaphor that lots of editorial cartoonists like to use. Famous artwork, famous identifiable is that you twist with a transformative message to say what you want to say. And that's one of the great benefits of being an editorial cartoonist, is that we're able to work from a palette of these metaphors. In France, they call them cliches. We can use this palette of cliches to make our points much more clearly and effectively, and get a mood. Like, I'm going for the mood in this kind of bleak, unproductive mood, urban, uh, dark. And I think that's fun. So I took the Edward Hopper painting as a mood for the point that I was trying to make. And in France, they call cartoons like this borrowings. I don't think we have a particular word for it here. Um, it's just lovely that editorial cartoonists can use copyrighted and trademarked images from others if we follow the rules. One of the rules is that you're supposed to give an acknowledgement to the copyright or trademark holder. You see in the lower left corner it says apologies to Edward Hopper. You've probably seen these little notes, apologies to this and apologies to that, in editorial cartoons elsewhere. And it's just there to acknowledge the copyright or trademark holder. Of course, Edward Hopper is no longer alive for me to apologize to him, but it's a required acknowledgement, and that's all for the good. Could be thanks to Edward Hopper. It, the acknowledgement is not that well refined, but it's kind of grown to be apologies too. Anyway, I enjoyed this cartoon. It performed very well 9 years ago, and also last week at number 8. Oops. Sorry about that. This one is by Rivers. Rivers is an interesting cartoonist for us. Rivers draws anonymously. We don't tell anyone who Rivers is. And that's around the world, there are anonymous cartoonists who crop up once in a while. And around the world, I can see a good point to that, because it can be dangerous to be an editorial cartoonist around the world. Cartoonists get murdered, like the Charlie Hebdo cartoonists. They get harassed by their governments, thrown in jail, beaten up. The powers that be around the world don't like editorial cartoonists. We're lucky to live in America and have a safe environment for editorial cartoonists. But I think that it would be good for editorial cartoonists around the world to have the option of drawing anonymously, and that would free people up who are under threat to say what they think, or for any other reason they choose to be anonymous. I'm okay with it. And so we do that here, and we're in a unique situation, being a middleman between the cartoonists and the publishers, to be able to do that. It is unusual here, though, and I was concerned a little bit at first when we took on Rivers, whether editors would not like that he's anonymous. And we got a couple of complaints, but by and large, it's fine. And Rivers is very often in the top 10. His or her cartoons are quite popular, and so we're happy with it, and I'm fine with anonymous cartoonists. So here's a big, nasty Viking holding 2 big axes and looking threatening, and he's got eye on his tunic, artificial intelligence. And there are 2 little businessmen standing next to him. One of them says, "Relax, our technocratic overlords claim he's here to make our jobs easier, and that the axes are purely decorative." And that's cute. I like that. There's no real left or right to be disturbed by in complaining about artificial intelligence. Rivers draws lots of cartoons that are very conservative, and the conservative newspapers and the liberal newspapers, you would think that conservative newspapers would print more conservative cartoons, but they don't. They print the same cartoons. They print the cartoons that nobody's going to disagree with. And that's kind of funny. At the top of our website, we post conservative cartoons because we were getting lots of complaints from conservative editors that most of the cartoonists are liberal. And people notice the cartoons they disagree with much more than they appreciate the cartoons that they agree with. And so these conservative editors were finding that the conservative cartoons were invisible to them, but the liberal ones were really annoying. And we'd get angry responses and threats to quit and all kinds of stuff. So I put that special conservative cartoons at the top, and we pop conservative cartoons in there frequently, including lots of cartoons by Rivers, and that has quieted the angry conservative editors. Now the cartoons have suddenly become visible. Still, most of the cartoons are liberal, but at least now these are visible. So, and here's the last one. This is by Chris Wyant, another absolutely great cartoonist. He's a New Yorker cartoonist, and he draws 2 a week for us. One of them is also for the Boston Globe. And this composition of this cartoon makes me laugh. I think it's a funny composition. There's Uncle Sam, and he's on the head of the elephant, and the elephant, front of the elephant looks like he's about to fall off the edge of a cliff, and the elephant is holding a sign that says, "Fiscal Cliff, watch your step." And the elephant says, "Don't worry, I'll make sure you land on your entitlements." And I think that it just looks funny. The composition makes me laugh. So, hey, I think that's a great one. And now we've gone through all 10, and I'm hoping that I did it in 10 minutes, but it looks more like I took 13 minutes. So, hey, we're going to be, I'm going to get better at all these controls as we do more of these, and we should be doing a lot of them. So be sure to check into darylcagle.com, check into CagleCast.com when we've got that up and going, and click to subscribe, get our free newsletter at cagle.com, and it's all so cool. Thanks for watching.